Well, I was a high school kid back in 1966. I graduated from high school. At that time, I didn't want to pursue my education. One, because my father couldn't afford it, and I didn't want to go to any college. And because my father was a single male parent, he was very strict with us, and all I wanted to do is get away from home. So my buddies and I, we talked about it, and we joined the military. At that time, it was called RA, regular Army. You joined. I was not drafted, and at that time, I wanted to be one of the best that at my job or what I wanted to do. And one of the things I want to do, I wanted to go airborne. I want to jump out of an airplane, as crazy as that might be. But because my buddies would tell me, "Are you crazy? You want to jump out of airplanes?" And that's what I want to do. I also, believe it or not, it intrigued me that we were out there trying to prevent communists to take over, and I was patriotic and gun-ho and strack and everything. In my training, like I said, I wanted to be an airborne infantry, so at that time I wanted to be a killer or a protector or whatever. Went to a lot of training, a lot of escape and evasion, where they drop you off and they give you a grits out in the middle of the jungle or the forest or whether and you would have to find your way in, and you couldn't eat until you find your way in. A lot of people would come in at 11, 12, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So, and you try to evade the so-called enemy, which were other GIs posing as the enemy, and try to prevent from getting caught. We went to the actual training company where we started our basic training, and there we had very strack-looking, stern-talking DIs, drill instructors, that took care of us, and it was just get off the bus, get over here very quick, grab your stuff, sit on your top of your stuff and everything, and I respected them because some of them were Vietnam veterans and even Korean War veterans at that time, and they knew what they were talking about. And then after I was done with my airborne training in Fort Benning, Georgia, I was sent to Fort Bragg, North Carolina with the 82nd Airborne. And in there, I spent 8 months with additional training out in the jungle, training how to kill in different ways, and with my weapon, jumping out of airplanes with full gear and everything. And then after 8 or 9 months, I was given orders to go to Vietnam. And before going to Vietnam, you were given 30 days leave to go home and take care of your business, get your paperwork, your will, all your affairs in order. And at that time, I had a girlfriend, so needless to say, we got married within those 30 days that I was supposed to go to Vietnam. So 2 weeks after I was married, I was in Vietnam. And I remember when we got there in the middle, late morning or early afternoon, and it was hot as hell. It was windy, so there was a lot of dust and everything, and the bombs and the firefight up in the distance, and hurry, get out of the way, go over here, go over there. It was hectic. A lot of people say, to themselves, what the hell did I get into? But me, because I wanted to be there and I wanted to do that and I wanted to look forward to what was next, I knew it was bad, but I was already psyched in my mind to adapt to it. Like I said, I was gung-ho. I was eager to get in a firefight and show off all my training that I had. But right there, a lot of people, a lot of GIs made up their mind or had a different perspective of Vietnam as soon as they got off the plane. Like they would say, what the hell did I get into? And I didn't, because that's what I expected. But I thought that way when we got into our first firefight. And because it was the real thing. It was no training. It was just use the training that you had to survive. And when you see all that goes on in a firefight, you know, your buddies, your so-called buddies that you met getting wounded or getting killed or killing the enemy, it makes you think, have a different perspective of the whole war and why you were there. And for me, the turning point was when I had my first so-called first kill, where I can say that I really killed that person. We were receiving fire from a hooch or a village, and we didn't have a lot of intel in that area. So myself being a rookie, and they send myself and one of my buddies who had been there in country longer than I have to patrol a pathway. And they sent us out about 100 meters, 125 meters out, and we were guarding this pathway. And we were off to the side, and we were just looking at this village, and all of a sudden we seen this VC, Viet Cong, with a straw hat on and black pajamas, and he had an AK-47 around his shoulder, and he was coming our way. And I saw him, my buddy who was in front of me to my left, he was sitting leaning up against a tree on the ground. And I tried to motion, I couldn't talk to him. I tried to motion that this guy was coming. And he finally saw me, and he stood up very carefully, and we just waited. We put our M16s on automatic, and we just waited for him to come by. And as he came by, I opened up, my buddy opened up, and we just riddled his body with bullets. And it was something that's very strange and very something that I wasn't prepared for when a lot of bullets hit a body. And well, we went up to after he was dead, we went up to him and we'd open up his pajamas and everything, and underneath he had a full NVA uniform. NVA stands for North Vietnamese Army. So he was a regular army dressed up as a VC. And we took all the paperwork we could from him to get some intel, and we took some of his equipment. I took his wallet out. Then the guy, he was still alive, but he was on his last breath. So he grabbed my hand and he started squeezing my hand. I went through his wallet looking for stuff, and I found a picture, obviously, of him and a lady and a little girl. And I looked at him, and he was looking at me on the ground, and he was squeezing my hand. And that's where all my emotions came out. And that was one turning point for me in that war, because I saw his feeling in his eyes that he was dead, that he was going to go back to his wife and his daughter. And I can feel the strength in my arm where he was holding my hand. It gave him away where he passed away. So from that day on, I said, my God, you know, he was just there doing a job just like I am doing my job. And true that it's kill or be killed, and we killed him first, but you know, he's got a wife and kid back home. So I started thinking about my wife that I had back home, and my father and my brothers and sisters. So at that time, I made a promise to myself, and it was that I wasn't gonna aim my weapon at any specific body. Yes, I was going to participate in the firefights, and yes, I was going to fire my weapon. But when you're in a firefight, there's multiple people shooting at the same time, so you don't know who killed whom. So that gave me peace of mind. We were the 101st Airborne, and if you can research this, we were called the Nomads, without a home, because we were always in pursuit of the enemy. We were always SD, search and destroy, search and destroy. So we didn't have a fixed home. So we were always going humping from click to click, and one click is 1,000 meters. So you develop friendships with your buddies, because when you're traveling, you have social distancing, like we call it now, but it's 5 meters apart. And so you have friends, the guy in front of you, the guy behind you, and you talk to them. When you have a break, you sit down and you BS. You talk about your family or your back home. You talk about the world. That's how we call the United States. When we were there, we call it the world. So, and then when you get in a firefight and you have some of your friends get shot, get killed right there in front of your eyes, that either weakens you more or heartens you more. In my case, it would hearten me. Sometimes that wasn't good, because you only wanted revenge, and instead of going about it the right way, you would just shoot anything that moved, and sometimes innocent people would get killed, women, children, old men. We would go in operations for 45 to 55 days at a time, and we would have what they call a Standdown, and we would have 1 or 2 days where we would get our weapons clean or replaced, or more ammo, and get a hot meal. And that's the only time we would get a hot meal, because we were always eating C rations. So at that time, we are given a choice to go on R&R, rest and recuperation. And because I was married, they would fly my wife to Hawaii so we can meet up. And that's where I put my bid in for Hawaii. But needless to say, before my turn came up for R&R, I was wounded. We took a lot of casualties trying to take over Yasha Valley. We finally did. But in that process, I was wounded, and I was medevac. I was medevac to a Navy ship, the USS Sanctuary, which was off the coast of Da Nang. And we sailed to Saigon. In Saigon, I was there for a few days, and then I was transferred from Saigon to the 106th General Hospital in Japan. In Japan, I was in Japan for a few weeks, and I was so gung-ho and so you call it patriotic, crazy, or whatever you want to call it, that when I was in Japan, that's where the doctors expedite you. You either go back to the world, you go back to Vietnam, or you stay there. And I wanted to go back to Vietnam because I wanted to avenge that they try to kill me. And so I want to go back and take revenge on what they try to do to me, try to kill me. But the doctors told me, no, you got to go back to the world. You're going back to the States. I flew into O'Hare Field, and I was proud of my uniform. I was dressed in my military uniform. I was airborne, so I had my blouse, boots, and my hat and starch fatigue my dress uniform and everything. And as I was walking down O'Hare Field with my duffel bag, one elderly gentleman, I remember this very clearly, he came up to me and he shook my hand. He thanked me for my service, and he told me, son, if I were you, I wouldn't go out looking like that. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the people out there are not take kindly to your service. So what I did is I went to the washroom and I changed clothes. So But it hurted me that I was there in Vietnam. We lost a lot of people. We lost close to 59,000 people dead, and a lot of people wounded. And yet the people over here, the civilians over here, did not take kindly to us. I didn't take kindly to that, and for a long time, very long time, I did not talk to anybody about my service, or what I did in Vietnam, or whatever. I kept it inside, and maybe that's what's wrong with us Vietnam veterans, that we kept everything bottled up inside. And then as the years went by, in the 80s, early 90s, we started learning about more things that are available to us, and what some of the civilians were doing to make it up to the Vietnam veterans. And one of the things that I appreciate a lot, and it just happened to me back in 2019, I heard of the Chicago Honor Flight that they have. And 5 years ago, from 2019, I put an application because I said, well, why not? And I hadn't heard anything from anybody, so I said, the hell with it. They probably forgot about me. And sure enough, back in late 2018, I get a phone call that they had my application and that I was eligible to go in the first honor flight for Vietnam veterans. That trip to Washington, D.C. made a lot of trip. I was honored because from 1966, 67, 68 that I was in the service until now, 2019, when I went on that trip to Washington, D.C., that was the first time that I felt in my heart that we were accepted, because we had all the civilians, and all the civilians, a lot of them were young people that they weren't even born when I was in Vietnam. And to see all them honoring us, and all the veterans, obviously they started with the World War II Korean, and now they're with the Vietnam veterans. But I felt like I was finally accepted, and so now I'm proud of what I did. The time I served in the military, and the time I spent in Vietnam,